Nairo Quintana ready to take the final time trial of Tirreno-Adriatico.
Here he comes, the overall race leader, Nairo Quintana, absolutely thrilled with his victory on Sunday and sounding very, very confident ahead of the time trial this afternoon. Gained a few seconds on Alberto Contador 12 months ago in the final time trial, which was a little bit of a surprise on that occasion. Finished 20th fastest, 38 seconds only down on Adriano Mallory. And for a man who is 58 kilograms,
totally that is impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, he's just 167 centimetres tall. Not a big guy, but gets the power out.
Oh, definitely. It's just... there he is. He has started. This is it for him. He did in the press following the presentation of the jerseys yesterday. He was remarkably confident. He said pretty much he knows he's almost won. I mean, he didn't use those words, but nearly did. He read between the lines. He's very confident. He said, barring accidents, he's won this. But again, for such a light, for a pure climber, he can really time trial pretty well. Put 3 seconds into Alberto Contador last year. But again, as is most of the Movistar riders, look how low he gets at the front. They've really been working on getting these riders in an aerodynamic position, and Nairo Quintana is one of them who does it really, really well. And look at those very, very long overshoes. They're supplied by the Scottish company Endura. They've looked at aerodynamics as well as the Canyon bike that he's riding. A lot of attention to detail in relation to the clothing, and apparently overshoes that high are more aerodynamic than lower overshoes.
They're like Wellington boots, aren't they?
They do. Remember the pink ones from the Giro? They were amazing, weren't they? But again, look at the seat position there. Throws him really forward, and then he sits. He's only sat on about a third of the saddle, and many teams now using a smaller, stumpier saddle that's used in triathlons. We saw Richie Porte in Paris-Nice using a stumpy saddle, but more of a traditional shape there for the Colombian.
And the seat being canted forward in triathlon style. It's effective. It's tough to get it far enough behind the bottom bracket, though, isn't it? Especially with a conventional saddle. It
is, but look how relatively flat he is as well. I mean, he really does get into a good position. As we see Thibaut Pinot coming towards the end of his chrono.
So Thibaut Pinot sitting 4th overall, 57 seconds back. He's got 6 seconds advantage on Alberto Contador. Alberto Contador, of course, is further up the road. We'll be seeing him cross the finish line very shortly. And he knows that he has a great target, excellent opportunity of moving up overall. What's the level of motivation for Contador? I suspect he'll want to test his form, see exactly what he's capable of in the time trials. They have to ride the time trials, of course, in the Grand Tours, and they don't get so many opportunities to do it in competition. So even if they don't have massive ambitions on the day in this one particular event, a lot of the GC riders will be taking the time trials seriously for the opportunity it offers for later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys, and Chris Froome, although he's not here, Chris Froome in particular, does go out for long training rides on his low profile, on the TT bike to get into that position, because it's something that I wasn't ever a TT specialist, but it hurt. You get on a TT bike, and if you haven't ridden it a lot before, it can wreak havoc with the muscles, especially during a stage race. So the opportunity to get on the TT bike, get into the groove, get the feel of the pain, the different muscles that it starts to work, and also the psychology behind preparing for an individual time trial is very different than a normal road stage. So it's important for all these GC riders looking ahead to the Grand Tours later in the year.
There's your top 3 on overall classification. Nairo Quintana has pride of place. He's got the big screen on the left. 2nd overall at 39 seconds, Bauke Mollema. Great start to the year for him, for the Trek Factory Racing rider from the Netherlands. And of course, 3rd overall, Rigoberto Urán. Now let's switch our attention to the man who is the reigning champion of Tirreno-Adriatico. He's not going to win it this year. Still in all, it is a pretty decent effort as he hits the barriers. He's still got a few seconds before Fabian Cancellara's time is recorded ahead of him. And now he's inside the last few hundred meters. It's going to be a good effort from Contador. I think this time is certainly going to get him into the top 10, or is it?
Yeah, it is foreshortened a little bit, but still a pretty respectable time by Contador here. Look at the face there.
Yeah, he's getting everything out, there's no doubt about it. He's taking this time trial seriously, as he does pretty much everything in his professional life. Alberto Contador races to the line. He's inside the final 50 metres. He has completed Tirreno-Adriatico for this year. 16th fastest so far, with a few more to come. 31 seconds back from Fabian Cancellara over 10 kilometres. Reasonably satisfying effort, satisfactory effort, I suppose, for Alberto Contador.
Yeah, and he only actually conceded 8 seconds to Steve Cummings, a specialist at this sort of event. So I think Contador really will be relatively happy with that as he looks forward to the Giro Tour double.
It's a big ask, isn't it?
It's a massive ask, yeah. And Thibaut Pinot coming into the final here, but yeah, a very big ask. And again, people are asking questions not only about Nibali's form, but about Contador's form. But you've got to remember, it's great when we see these clashes of the Titans, and Andalusia was wonderful, of course, the Froome v Contador face-off. But sometimes the riders are looking ahead. This race, Tirreno-Adriatico, is has an important place in the calendar and is prestigious to get on your Palmares. But the riders have a different, sometimes a slightly different trajectory. And Alberto Contador, not quite in the form to win this race, but again, his big objective for the season, of course, as we all know, is the Giro Tour double. But that is a very, very big ask indeed.
Distinctive humpback style of Bauke Mollema. It's a busy style, isn't it? He really gets the shoulders, the neck, the head, everything rocking. Not absolutely rock solid still, but it's a good position on the bike.
Still pretty good. I mean, what you can't change is the way that you are skeletally, and some riders can get their backs relatively flat. Other riders, regardless of their efforts in the wind tunnel, you are limited by the way you are on a bike. I mean, Chris Froome, what a wonderful cyclist, but on a bike, he looks slightly awkward. That's just the way it is. Although on a low profile, he manages to get into. Although he looks awkward, he's remarkably efficient. And you are built the way you are. And some riders, the bike, as I said before, is an extension of them.
Other riders, it's like a hinge, isn't it?
Other riders, the bike is almost at odds sometimes. But Pinot here, very high cadence.
Here comes Thibaut Pinot pushing to the line. It's going to be a good effort. It's going to be better than Alberto Contador. He's going to hang on to that. Well, did he now? He's just ever so slightly behind Alberto Contador.
2 seconds behind.
2 seconds behind. He's retained that fourth position, or at least he's retained his position ahead of Alberto Contador by 4 seconds. Good effort from Thibaut Pinot. He'd be delighted with that. Rigoberto Urán towards the back end of the final stage of Tirreno-Adriatico. The man who's sitting third overall, 48 seconds behind. Some very consistent performances during the week in the sprint stages, the stages where he needed to stay up towards the 4 with the potential for gaps, particularly on stage 3 into Castel Raimondo. It was very impressive that he managed to make it into the top 10 for 2 days in a row. And now Nairo Quintana, superb style on a bike, isn't he? Well, he's so compact. I mean, he's a very light rider. You wouldn't say his maximum power output is anything like the equal of Fabian Cancellara, but he cuts a much smaller hole in the air, doesn't he?
He does. That frontally he will need less watts to produce the same sort of speed, if you know what I mean, because he's lighter. But again, it is harder for the lighter riders on a flat course. If it's a hilly time trial, riders like Urán, riders like Quintana can actually maximise in relation to, of course, the benefits that a good and an efficient power to weight ratio offers. But on the flat it is harder. But Quintana, he actually looks like a bit of a TT specialist as Urán comes in. Good time from him.
Yeah, well, he's only just made the barriers now, and he's already well behind Fabian Cancellara's time, so he's certainly going to lose time to Steve Cummings. I think he could well lose a bit of time to Contador and to Thibaut Pinot yet, but that's just visual rule of thumb to do with the barriers. There's no massive mathematical calculation gone into that assessment. Let's see what he's got. He's already behind Steve Cummings. How much is he behind him? Needed, I think 26 seconds behind Steve Cummings for Cummings to overtake him on the overall positions as he races to the line. Rigoberto Urán pushing as hard as he possibly knows, and 25 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara means he's certainly held off Steve Cummings. What's the situation with regard to Thibaut Pinot and Alberto Contador?
Well, Thibaut Pinot beat him by 5 seconds, so he looks pretty safe actually in third at the moment. So Thibaut Pinot has clawed back a little bit of time, but not enough to overhaul the Colombian.
Wow, gone within 4 seconds, and a bit of rough maths there. Thibaut Pinot, that's a very, very impressive performance from Pinot, because Urán certainly did improve his time trials in the last few years, and ahead of Grand Tours to come.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, of course.
Is Urán doing Giro? Yeah.
Well, Rigoberto Urán last year won the time trial in the Giro. It was a very hilly, very difficult time trial. As a Bauke Mollema from the Netherlands, from Trek Factory Racing, is he going to try and keep his second place overall? For him, it's 1 kilometre to go. Look at him fighting the bike now, trying to squeeze as much as he can out, begging for the line to come.
Well, if he does a similar finishing kilometre to Fabian Cancellara, he's probably looking at about 30-odd seconds, maybe 35 seconds down on the Swiss at the conclusion of this. Let's hold fire and see what Bauke Mollema can come up with.
It's certainly a pretty respectable time, and though he's got to veer left and head down the last few hundred metres, and the wind is slightly helping them and will help them slightly more when they turn left here. It always falls short, isn't it, when we get with the motorbikes and the camera angle.
A tailwind is no help, really, because you still have to generate the massive power, and it's almost like you've got that little armchair ride.
It happens
you have
quicker,
to make yourself go.
Doesn't make the pain any less at all, especially in a time trial.
Indeed. So he's going to be behind Steve Cummings, Bauke Mollema, 39 seconds behind Nairo Quintana. So as he heads up to the finish line, it's been a great week of stage race action for the Trek Factory Racing man. 22nd place, 34 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara on the day for Bauke Mollema. It's a good effort, but he's lost time.
He actually beat Rigoberto Urán by 4 seconds. That's important. But what can Nairo Quintana do? The last man on the course. He's looking pretty smooth, looking pretty aerodynamic. What will the time of the little Colombian be? Will this be his first ever victory in Tirreno-Adriatico, to add, of course, to the Giro d'Italia and the other numerous stage races he's won in the past?
Yeah, he's won the Tour of Basque Country back in 2013, the Vuelta Burgos in 2013 and 2014, won the Tour de l'Avenir in 2010, Route du Sud, Vuelta Murcia, make a list. It's Tour de Saint Louis 1 year ago.
And soon be seeing him on the cobbles for the very first time. That's going to be interesting. I'll certainly be looking forward to those races. Dwardor's Vlaanderen.
So he's actually not quite as far up, I think, as Bauke Mollema. I have a funny feeling he's going to leak a bit of time to him. He can get through this final, well, basically he can be more than a minute slower than Fabian Cancellara and still beat Bauke Mollema.
Yeah, he's got 39 seconds on Bauke Mollema. Mollema putting in a pretty solid ride there, beating Urán.
Yeah, so 1 minute and 13 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara would equal the finishing time for the bike race of Bauke Mollema, if that's not a very, very complicated way of putting it. And I think Nairo Quintana has enough in hand, but he's still got to suffer his way up this finishing straight to complete this effort. 25 years of age, the man from Combita, Boyata in Colombia. He was born, grew up and continues to live at around about 3,000 meters altitude. And that the benefit of that upbringing is clearly in evidence on the climbs. Not a bad operator against the stopwatch as well, given his physiological difficulties. But what an impressive performance all week. Great all-round performance from a great stage racer. Nairo Quintana crosses the line, 55th fastest on the day, 55 seconds in arrears, but he is confirmed as the winner of Tirreno-Adriatico for 2015. It's been a superb performance all week from the young Colombian. Remember, he's coming back from a shoulder injury sustained at the Vuelta a España in 2014. He damaged that shoulder again in the Colombian Road Race Championships just last month. And he really wasn't too certain of his form coming into this week, but well, he's really displayed fantastic form, particularly in the mountains. Wonderful effort in Terminillo, and he's rubber stamped that with just enough to take the overall victory. So Cancellara it is that takes stage 7 of Tirreno-Adriatico.